Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are really glad that you could join us for what your CFO wants to hear about L&D. Please note that this session is being recorded and will be available for replay later. So my name is Looij, and I'll be supporting the session from the Sharpest side. And today we're diving deep into a crucial topic: how to effectively communicate the value of L&D to your CFO. And to guide us through this vital discussion, I'm happy to introduce our speakers. First, we have Bart, the CFO at Good Habits, who brings over a decade of direct CFO experience. And joining him is Nicole, who is the sales lead at Sharpest and who will share her insight from the L&D perspective. Before we begin, a quick note: please feel free to submit your questions using the Q&A feature throughout the sessions, and we'll have a dedicated time to address them. The second part of the webinar is going to be all about questions, so please drop it anytime during the first part. And without further ado, let's kick things off. Nicole and Bart, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Lutza. I'm really looking forward to this interview today with Bart. I'm super excited. So I think everyone is really experiencing some issues with getting budget cuts, budget approved, especially in the L&D, on the L&D side of business. So Bart, we have now 40 minutes to really go in depth into the red flags to avoid, how to position the L&D investment, and so forth. So let's dive in. My first question to you, Bart. On the one hand, can you introduce yourself a little bit and what Good Habits does? What is it like being on both sides of the L&D equation, so approving budgets on the one hand, but also working for a learning solutions company? So I would be very keen to learn more about that.
Yes, thanks, Nicole, and hello, everybody. It's great to be here in this webinar. So my name is Bart. I'm the CFO at Good Habits. And for those of you who don't know, actually, like most of you, I assume Good Habits is active in the field of learning and development. We have a suite of online courses and assessments, and through that, we aim to help organizations stay ahead of the curve by making learning a habit for all their employees. We do this by designing learning that's accessible and enjoyable at the same time, because we believe that making learning fun is something that encourages people to keep on doing it and making it a habit. And we are a global leader in this field, actually, especially in Europe, where we are very active in 10 markets right now. We have about 2,600 clients, both on the business side as well as governmental and NGOs. And we have over 7 million users, actually, that are active on our platform. Some more active than others, I must say. As to myself, then, maybe I'll start with a very personal note, because it's interesting here in the preparation for this webinar. I've been thinking about, what is the difference between finance and HR, because sometimes it's almost like, we speak different languages, or we come from different planets, like a Venus and Mars kind of thing. But I have actually been married to an HR professional for almost 30 years, and very happily married, I should add to that. So I can say that, if you try to understand each other a little bit, you can actually make it work and make it very successful. I have been in finance roles, in global CFO roles for about 10 years, as Lutz already mentioned. But I've been in finance roles for about 3 decades now already, always in international companies. And I have indeed, as already has been indicated, been on both sides of the L&D table. In a financial role, of course, as the person approving budgets, sometimes saying yes, sometimes always politely saying no, but or sometimes maybe, but we'll come to the considerations there in a moment. And now, in the last 3 years, I've been working with the Good Habits, which obviously is a learning company as well. And we are our own people, our account executives, our customer success managers, are also fighting for L&D budgets with our customers or our prospects. So I know the pain on both sides. And let me tell you also that, as a CFO, you don't actually wake up in the morning thinking, okay, whose training budget can I cut today? It doesn't work like that. I wake up thinking, our resources are limited. Where will they do the most good? And that is, what drives me in making decisions.
Thanks for the introduction and also for already going into what's on top of your mind when you wake up in the morning. Super cool to hear, and also I guess it's a win-win now for good habits for your employees to learn what's a CFO's thinking, and also for our audience here consisting mainly of HR and L&D. So my first in-depth question is, when an HR leader, L&D leader, walks into your office with proposal, so what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
The first question that I want to answer is what business pain or what problem are we actually solving by this? What is the need? Where does it come from? I do that, by the way, with any investment proposal, not only for L&D, because what you want to avoid is that you invest in projects that are just hobbies, if you know what I mean. That's not what we want to do. So my first question is what is the underlying pain that we're trying to solve by doing this?
Mm-hmm. And how often do you know within 30 seconds if you'll approve or not?
Well, I know if we move to the next stage of the discussion, let's say, because then I have other questions that also need to be answered. I cannot. It would be very, very strange, especially if it's a good investment, for me to just say yes, here's the money and good luck in 30 seconds. It doesn't work like that. But as I said, if the proposal that comes up does not address any problem that we are currently or that we will be facing, and that this solution might actually help solving, then I don't, there's no point in having a further discussion. So if the pitch starts with something like, oh yeah, we want to inspire people or something vague like that, that doesn't work with me. Inspiration is wonderful, but but it's actually impact in the end that helps you to pay the bills.
So you said it's pain, it's impact, and it's taking longer than 30 seconds, obviously, to decide, is it a yes or no? So many times people get a no because they are not showing impact correctly, or what does HR need to do so you see it as an investment and not an expense?
Well, to see it as an investment, you need to link it to an outcome. Because if all you talk about is this is what we want to do, and even if the underlying problem or pain is clear, and you can indicate what the solution is and what it's going to cost, at that point it's still only a cost or an expense. It only becomes an investment when you can link it to hopefully tangible and concrete outcomes. That in the end will help to not only solve a problem, but also it has a link to a clear objective that a company has. Very often that, of course, is being more profitable or driving growth. But it could also be linked even to something like that is not always just about money, to do with safety or sustainability or things like that. We should not forget that as well. Mm-hmm. But to be able to call it an investment, that's my point. There has to be a clear result of what you're going to do. Otherwise, it's just an expense.
Yeah, interesting take. So it needs to be like a clear result. You said, how would you measure those results? What could be those results?
Well, it depends on what the project is, of course. But it could be, if it's something to do with L&D, it could be related to reducing attrition of employees, for instance. If you do like a leadership program or something like that, it could, something that helps fill skills gaps that people might have and make them ready for internal promotions. So people inside your organization can grow, and you have to You spend less on recruitment, for instance. Maybe it helps people to become better salespersons and drive the top line, or executing your strategy in a faster way. I realize, even then you cannot always exactly predict what the outcome is, but at least what I expect is that we've thought about it, that we try to make it as concrete as possible, and if possible, also translate it into something that we can measure, and then also determine how we will measure the impact.
Mm-hmm. So that's the first, right? The person comes with the proposal. You said it must be a clear business case with KPIs on what to improve. How do you then, what's the next step so they get the go? It's easy to say, well, the performance improves, what does, in a concrete way, need to be in there so you give your yes?
Well, so you need to make that more tangible, because so what does that mean? You always have to ask, let's say the question beyond the question. So what does performance improvement mean? And how do we measure that then? Are we going to use our performance appraisals, or are we going to use something that is more objective and neutral? In the case of sales, it's always relatively easy, because there you have hard numbers that show whether people have actually become more effective as salespeople. But it all depends on what kind of program it is, and what the desired outcome is. That will determine then how do you measure the impact. And I realize, Nicole, that's not easy. I'm also not so naive, if you like it, that I say, I need you to know to come up exactly with the whole list of hard savings. In some cases that's possible. You can kind of estimate it. In other cases, maybe you cannot translate it directly into euros, but at least you can try and formulate what the impact of this program is going to be. And again, if you cannot do that, if you are not able, if you're an L&D manager and you've come across this great, training program or whatever it is that you want to do, or this great software solution, or a great platform like Good Habits, for instance, then I would want to know, okay, but what is this? How is this going to help us? What is this going to do to the people that are using it, and what skills are they going to develop, and how is that going to make us more successful in the end? And try to make it as concrete as possible. Sometimes it's not numbers. It can still be words, if you like, or like proxy metrics. But you have to make it. It has to be clear that there is an impact. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, and you might as well stop.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And this takes me to our first poll. So in between, we have a little poll just to get the audience also to get their opinion. And the first question is now, what's your biggest L&D budget challenge right now? Is it, so we have here a poll, getting initial approval from finance? Is it proving ROI after implementation, or none of the above? So it's quite easy. Please click, and in a second we then see the trend. Super exciting. Let's see. And at the moment we are at 6 votes for getting initial approval from finance and 5 for proving ROI after implementation. So it seems it's a tie nearly. But getting initial approval is now winning. So it's actually a hot topic that we are discussing here. Now we already talked about tying it to numbers, tying it to outcomes. So our question of mine, like I've asked some of my colleagues before, what do you really want to know? Tell me all the questions, because it's so interesting to have you here and to really get all the insights from someone being 30 years plus in finance. So what specific financial metrics do you need to see? Because we especially at Sharpist, we look a lot at engagement scores, at satisfaction ratings, but what's the financial metric that you want to see?
Yeah, that is, in an ideal world, I would like to, I would like to see quantified, or maybe even within a range, what the impact is going to be. If you talk about financials, in the end, it's about something that is going to help you grow faster in the long term or in the short term or both, or something that helps you to reduce cost. Because maybe it helps you. It helps with prevention or something. Like maybe it is a program. It all depends on the nature of the program, of course. But maybe it's something like, I'll give you one example of where it's not maybe exactly L&D, but this is a platform that we use at Good Habits. I'll do a little commercial for them. The company is called Open Up. They do a good job, and they help. They basically do online burnout prevention. And they came to me with this proposal, and like very often it was all kind of warm and fuzzy. I understood in this case, by the way, what pain we were trying to solve, because burnouts and people sitting at home not being able to work, that is of course something that you would like to prevent. It's really a problem for the employees themselves first and foremost, but also for us as a company, I think, like for most companies. So I understood that part, but what I did not see is, okay, I can see then of course also what it costs. That's question number 2. I mean, you have a business pain that you're trying to solve. Okay, nice. So at least we can tick that one off. That's the first one that I mentioned. Then tell me more about the solution that you are proposing. How does it work? And this is also an important one. Why is this then the best solution that's out there? Very often what I see, this is, by the way, not only the case with L&D or with the example that I'm mentioning here now, also very often with software solutions, where people might have a problem that they're trying to solve, they stumble across a solution, or very often, they get a cold call, maybe even from a supplier or whatever, and think, ooh, that looks nice, that looks interesting, but they haven't really done their homework in trying to find out, okay, is this really the best solution in terms of value for money that is out there? So that's question number 2. What is the solution, and why is this the best option? Have you looked at alternatives? Question number 3 is obviously the cost then, because I need to know how much are we going to invest into this. In this case, all that was answered, but question number 4 is always the most difficult one. And question number 4 is what we were just talking about. What is the outcome then? What is the impact? How do we measure that? And that's always tricky. But in this case, it became for me a no-brainer when I was comparing the cost to what the person that was pitching it to me explained. Yeah, but Bart, if we can only prevent 1 burnout per year, this is already going to pay itself back. And then you look at what the success rates are. So then you try to get data there. So, okay, how does it work? Do they have some data, some benchmark info that we can use, some track record that that they want to share with us? And then in the end, it does become a no-brainer, because then you can see, okay, this is great because it's going to solve a business issue. We're going to help people with this, and actually it's going to pay itself back. So that's that. In that order, I do it. And there's probably a 5th criteria that I should mention as well. That should be part of any good proposal or any winning business case. The 5th one to me is, okay, is this? But in this case, that was also totally clear. Is this also clearly linked to our objectives, or could this maybe be interesting, etc., but are we not achieving what we are trying to achieve as a company in terms of what are our overarching goals maybe for this fiscal year and beyond, and is this helping us towards those goals? I think that's also another very important one to tick off. So
okay,
for me, that's the order in which I look at things, and any good, any winning business case will have those 5 elements in. And if you present it to me like that, I will be all ears.
That's great to hear. Is there a certain threshold if an L&D proposal comes on your table or not? Or is it that every proposal has to be approved by you?
No, we do it in practice. We do have thresholds. So to be honest, but that depends on how every company is organized. It might be different for other people in the call, but we work. We're a mid-sized international company, so I am not, as a CFO, with if it's a program that costs only a few €1,000, I'm not involved, because there is an overall L&D budget that I need to approve in the beginning of the year. But if they want to spend a few thousand on this or a few thousand on that, I don't necessarily need to get involved with that. It's only above a certain amount that they need my approval, even if it is in the budget.
Okay, gotcha.
When it comes to the budget at the beginning of the fiscal year, before we start with the fiscal year, then there's always a program for these are the things that we want to do. And this is why we are proposing that budget. So it's good that you asked that, because it's basically two different moments in time. One is when the overall budget is agreed, and second is that for the bigger projects above a certain threshold, when a decision is actually made to invest in those programs. Those are two different things. But first, you need to have the budget in the first place. If the budget is not there, then it doesn't mean that it's totally impossible, but it's going to be a lot harder to get it approved, because the money has to come from somewhere, and you are competing. That is how it works with budgeting. You are money is scarce. I mean, I don't have a money printer in my garage, and also our budget. If I look at how we do it, it's also limited. There's a certain amount of OPEX that we can spend, and also, and I'm curious to hear from people on the call, but in the last few years things have changed. There's a lot more pressure on budgets and cost control and being profitable, and that happened to us as well. So there's a lot more scrutiny, and it means that you need to fight a little bit harder to get your projects approved. Good projects with a good business case and with all the elements that I just mentioned will still get through, but it's not as easy as it was. You have to be smarter, and the projects have to be smarter.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the insight. So it's also super interesting to know, so when is the right time to ask for budget? You said when it gets approved, and then when actually the programs are in front and to be implemented or to be...
Well, you need to plan ahead, of course. I mean, don't come when the budget is already locked in, and then there's immediately a funding problem. So make sure you do it at the time when the budgets are prepared, which is before the start of the fiscal year.
That's why for most companies right now is the time, right, to log in those budgets.
If you're on a calendar year, financial year, yes. Not for us.
Not for you.
Yeah, we have a broken fiscal year, but
Yes, so make sure to use the right timing, right? This takes me to our next poll. So we have another question prepared for our group here. So how do you currently measure L&D impact? And here is already the question. We have 4 answers here for you. Is it, number 1, we have a comprehensive analytics in place. Number 2, we have basic metrics like completion rates, anecdotal feedback, or we don't measure impact yet. Please vote now. So it seems to be a tie again, mostly anecdotal feedback and basic metrics like completion rates. So it's actually, as you said, really, really hard to measure impact. And you already said what the winning proposal has to look like for you. The structure, the key elements, what it needs to have. Is there like a red flag? And if yes, what's the biggest red flag for reviewing L&D proposal? What makes you immediately think, no, this won't work?
Well, if the outcomes are vague, and the goals of the project are not clear, if there has clearly not, any research has been done into what solutions are out there, if the underlying problem is not clear that we're trying to solve. I mean, I'm repeating some of the things that I already said, but that if some of these are such crucial key elements that are missing, yeah, those are all red flags. I mean, the impact, that is the hardest part. And I understand if that is a little bit maybe hard to measure or to express, I'm willing to help or give people some guidance how that maybe can be done. But if some of these basic things are missing, like actually nobody can tell me what we're trying to achieve with this, what problem we're trying to solve, I mean, those are for me serious red flags.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I say something also about what you just said about engagement and because then you come more about to a point of evaluation and whether contact is going to be rude, yes or no. I mean, this is something that is very close to my heart, because this is something that on the other side of the table, as Good Habits, we sometimes struggle with as well, because when renewal time comes up and yeah, budgets are under pressure and they put our solution on the table, and then there's usually a financial guy like me saying, yeah, but where's the impact? What do we get? I can see what we spend, but and it looks nice, it looks great, but yeah, how can we measure what the impact is? And this is something that I think a lot of L&D solutions providers like ourselves have to really get better at, by using the tools, maybe by using AI in a much smarter way, because very often the discussion is mostly about engagement, because those are at least hard metrics that you can see. Yeah, there's a certain percentage of the employees that are actually using the platform. Great, but for me, it's like, okay, at least I'm using it. I'm going in. It's like, okay, I can demonstrate that I have a gym membership, and maybe I go to the gym every now and then. But have I actually become a healthier person? That's what I want to know. Mm-hmm. And so, what in one way or another, what the solution providers should get better at, we are working very, very hard at that at Good Habits, is how can we demonstrate the impact that we make? So not only people are spending time on the platform, but what did they get out of it? What problems did they solve, or what skills gaps that they might have had, have they been able to overcome? I think that is, then you can demonstrate it's not an ROI, it's an ROL, it's a return on learning. So you invest in learning, but then you can actually see what comes out of that. That's a hard one to actually to really get to and to get to hard and reliable numbers. But we're making good progress there. But that's something that I think you should look at when you look for a solution.
Definitely, and that's only something you can prove once it has been implemented and used.
Yeah.
The question is how to give that to you this year.
That is true, but what you can do, like the example that I mentioned with this burnout prevention solution, is that you can ask the solution provider, what can you show me some evidence from your customers, and anonymous of course, but some statistics on how it works and how successful it is.
So case studies, references, that's something you would like to see. Mm-hmm.
And more than engagement rates, that's only the beginning.
Yeah, that's the beginning, that's true. We at Sharpist, we work with a great pyramid. We don't have time to cover that now, but it also shows you the basics, like you said, engagement, and then it shows you step by step the change that has occurred because of the investment and because of the implemented solution, and then in the end you can measure the business outcome. But now we are ready at the part of our Q&A, so I will go over to the questions that some of our participants here asked. So one would be, I'm starting by the oldest, how can we compete with divisions that have a stronger lobby or sponsor than L&D?
A stronger lobby or sponsor?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Of course. I think as a decision maker, you should try and see through that a little bit and look at the facts and look at the proposal and not necessarily at the let's say the pitching skills or the level in the organization that somebody is at that is trying to sell it to you. Having said that, I know how it often works. So what you then need to do is make sure that you have that kind of clout as well in the organization. So, if necessary, then if you think, okay, I'm not going to be able to get through to the CFO with this, make sure that you have your HR director or CHRO, if you have one on your side, and get them to try and influence the decision. That's what I would recommend.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, as I said, almost every CFO is, I think, pretty much like me. We can always be convinced with hard numbers. Give us the facts, give us the numbers, and we'll listen.
Selina also asked what best practices regarding ROI, ROE works that make L&D being considered at fair value.
Yeah.
This is,
if you would do, let's say, a regular run-of-the-mill investment, like, I don't know, even an M&A project or some machine in your production line, if you have a production company, then there are very simple formulas that you can use, because there you can put it in a spreadsheet, and you can look at the cash that you're putting in and the cash that you expect is coming out. You can work with some scenario, and then you can calculate your ROI. And then you can compare different solutions and make the right decision. That's how we financial people love it, because it's all kind of objective and clear, and in the warm and fuzzy world of HR, it doesn't always work like that. So there is not, if you have all these numbers in the same way, then in theory, you could do an ROI calculation. But I think you need to look at more aspects, like the ones that I described before, and it means that it's not, the impact is sometimes not just a financial number or a euro number. It can also be something else that is a little bit harder to quantify. But if at least you try to make it specific, and it doesn't fit into an ROI formula, it's still very well possible that the proposal gets approved.
And then another question, which proof do you need before you make an investment? And this was already a bit similar to what we discussed before, like, do you need a case study? How should it be delivered?
Yeah, it's pretty much what I said before.
Yeah.
So in the end, it doesn't have to be a long story. I mean, for a bigger project, I would expect like a 2-pager with those at least those 5 elements that I described. What is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the proposed solution? Why is it the best? What is the investment that we need to make? Number 4, the most difficult one very often, what do we expect the impact will be? How can we measure this? And number 5 is, how does it link to our to the goals that we have as a company? That's how I operate. Clear.
How can a proposal even land on your desk? So this takes us even a step back. How does it land at your desk? Diego is asking.
Well, that's not so difficult, because first of all, it's at budget time. So the budget proposals come in. They are first filtered by an FP&A team that we have. So there's a team of business controllers that work together with the different leaders in the business, people responsible for a budget, just to make sure that in the end we're not, we're going to discuss something that is kind of realistic and fits in with our overall plan. Then there is a budget review for every department, and that is and of course we have quite an extensive session where we review the HR budget proposal, and part of the HR budget proposal, a very important part, is the L&D budget, and then HR will present, these are our plans for the coming year, this is what we want to do, and this is what we want to spend money on, etc., etc. We will then review that, go through that, try to understand. At that moment, we are not making final decisions yet, because there will be some metrics, at least some logic, and look, if there are ideas already in there where we see, okay, but we don't see what problem you're trying to solve, or we don't see how it links to the business targets even before you go into the numbers, then you might already immediately cross them off the list. But if that's not the case, if we think, oh yeah, that could be a good solution, we might not even know what the actual solution is, but we might know that we want to find, a platform, or we want to do a program to solve this. Okay, and then you put that in as a placeholder in the budget. And then during the fiscal year, as I explained before, but again, this does not work the same in every company. This is how we operate. Within that approved budget, there is a certain level of freedom for the L&D manager and also then the HR, or in our case, CHRO, that they report to. But if it's above their limit, then it would have to come again to me. And then we go through the whole thing with the financial analysis and the metrics and the impact, etc., etc. That's how that works.
So what you're saying is a smart way is already to involve you earlier before the budgeting starts, so it doesn't get crossed off already if you don't see what this whole solution.
Yeah, if it's a really big and important thing, where you think, okay, this is going to be a really big investment. Actually, we might need more budget for it than we are used to. Even though, and again, this is, I think, how what best practice in budgeting is that you build the budget from scratch every year. It's like a zero base. You start with nothing, and basically everything that you want to do in the next year, you have to explain and defend. That's how it works. But if you think, this is something that is, we think it's really important that we need to fight for this, etc. But we also, it's a little bit out of the ordinary, or it's going to be, it might mean that there's going to be more budget needed than Bart might expect. Then it's probably not a bad idea to already pull my jacket before and say, look, can we have a chat about this, because this is going to come in a proposal, and we just want to make sure that you're okay that we propose this. That's never a bad idea, but there's no guarantee that it will be approved. because you also need to see how everything fits together. I forget to mention that, but that's really, really important, because in the end, as I said before, we have a total OPEX budget that we can afford for everything for the whole company. And every euro that we spend on L&D, we cannot spend in, for instance, in product development, to mention one thing. So we need, or in marketing, or it's things like that as well. And how do you make those decisions? That's what keeps me awake, or that's what I wake up with. How do I make sure that the money, the budget that we have is scarce, and how do we make sure that we invest it in the right things that are going to help us achieve those goals? But I keep emphasizing how important it is to link it to the goals that you have as a company.
So you said for bigger, larger investment, it makes sense to involve you earlier. My question is now, who else to involve? And do you get involved in the procurement process at any stage, or is it just really done budget approval?
No, we have a procurement manager.
Okay.
Good that you ask, but I guess it depends a little bit on how you're organized, the size of your company. But we have a procurement manager, and this person would then get involved with, trying to find possible solutions together with the business manager, or in this case, the L&D manager. And in the end, what this person does is very, very important: negotiate. And you'd be surprised how much discount you can get.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially at year end.
Yeah, it works like that. Yeah, targets need to be achieved, etc. Yeah.
Another question. So Selina in here is very active. Thanks for asking so many questions. Another one is, how do we mainly cut in L&D before other divisions, even though L&D is so important?
How do we? Sorry, what was the beginning?
She asked, how do we mainly cut L&D before other divisions, even though it's so important?
I don't think that is necessarily the case, or it shouldn't be the case. And if that is the case, then in one way or another, the L&D agenda is not pushed clearly enough, or it is not made clear enough. I mean, because that's the thing with, I just mentioned product development, marketing. Those are areas where maybe it might be a little bit easier to demonstrate what the impact is going to be. And then if you have to make choices between projects there and something in L&D that is all warm and fuzzy, and you cannot see what the impact is, then I understand why that happens. But that's why I keep emphasizing, try to make it objective and measurable, and try and think for yourself, why are we doing this actually? How is it going to help the company? And how can we measure it one way or another, what the impact will be? If you cannot do that, then you're not going to win the fight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Impact, tangible, measurable. That's the key message I hear today.
Yeah.
Yes, so there are 2 more questions in here. Do bigger budgets mean you need bigger proof, as in more references, cases, larger size of the supplier, any other extras, especially when going above 100K?
Yeah. Very often, yes, and in our case, definitely. So that's why I also mentioned that if it goes above a certain number, then the approval will have to come to me, or even to the CEO eventually, if it's bigger. And it also means, if we look at the procurement process, then we are more diligent in supplier selection when the investment is higher. Because we're not going to involve procurement with something that is only a few €100 or something, then because it's not worth it. It's not worth the exercise. But for bigger ones, yes. But where those thresholds are, that all depends on how your company is organized, how big the organization is, and how much freedom to operate the individual managers have in the organization. That's different everywhere. But usually there is some kind of structure in place.
Mm-hmm. And does it mean just because you approved a budget, I can go out and immediately spend it?
Well, in our case, as I explained, it depends on the amount.
Oh, yeah.
It depends on, so our L&D manager has a certain authority level, and if it's in the budget, they can basically spend it. If it's above their number, it would have to be approved by the CHRO, and if it's above their number, it would have to come to me. That's how we've organized it.
So you're the final person to convince, at least for a certain.
No, because if it's really, really big, as I said, then I need to go to the CEO.
Even the CEO. And what would be the investment for the CEO to be involved?
In our case.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about a really big number. So that's for L&D, that's not likely to happen. So yeah. But even then, if it's look, if it's outside the budget for L&D, or even then first, and we still think it is important, then we might see if there's room in the overall HR budget, so we can move something around maybe if we still want to make it happen. If that doesn't work, then we have to tap another ELT member on the shoulder and say, hey, can we reallocate some budget, because we have a very, very important project here. That very rarely happens.
Okay. So I see the time is up and Lutz is back. Thank you so much. It was super, super interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed doing this, and I hope I could demystify the mysterious CFO world a little bit.
Lutz.
So maybe we can bring up our last poll if people have like 2 minutes or 1 minute more. So it's like really the last question of ours. Like, do you currently have a leadership development program in place? I'm just going to bring it up. So please leave your vote. And then while you're voting, I want to give a big thank you to Bart and Nicole, and a shout out to join us today and share their insights. And thank you for the audience for the excellent questions and to join us. And we covered so much today, and I hope everyone found these discussions as valuable as I did. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we recorded the session, so the recording is going to be available. So please feel free to share it with anyone who you think it would be interesting for. And I wish everyone a nice afternoon. And so, bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.